Coming up next on MCN, the McAllen Cable Network, the Development Corporation of McAllen from McAllen City Hall. The Development Corporation appointed by the City Commission is charged with making recommendations on how to use money that's been raised from the half-cent sales tax that was approved by McAllen voters on May the 3rd, 1997. The recommendation is made to the City Commission. They make the final decision. And now, the Development Corporation of McAllen.
I'll call this meeting to order. Welcome to today's special meeting for the Development Corporation of McAllen. Today is July 25th, and we're here at City Hall in the third floor. We're going to begin with item number 1, approval of the minutes to the regular meeting held Monday, June the 17th. If you can take a look at the minutes.
Mr. Chair, I had one comment.
Okay.
For consideration as an addition on the Christian's Manor, I do recall there was a stipulation that the funds were going to be non-operational, that they were going to be totally construction or capital improvement. Would it be appropriate to make that stipulation in the minutes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good point. And so to that item, it does say requested 125, Development Corp recommendation 170. Should the requested amount be 170? It looks like we gave them more than what they requested.
That's what we did. Yeah, they did request 125, and the motion of the board was to give them the full 170 that was requested. He requested it here in person.
Okay.
The written request was 125.
Okay. Just looks a little
What was the difference?
odd.
We'd like to clarify that in the narrative as well.
Yeah, we can clarify
Put it in the narrative.
Okay.
The oral request was 170, the written request was 125, and that it was for non-operational.
Okay.
We'll adjust those. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other changes or additions to the minutes? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I make a motion to approve with the amendments that we discussed.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Item number 2.
Okay, this is going to be a public hearing item, so if we can go ahead and open the public hearing.
Okay, we'll open the public hearing now.
Okay, thank you. Mr. President and members of the board, I would like to present you with the proposed Development Corporation of McAllen budget for fiscal year 24-25, and I'll draw your attention to the yellow highlighted column, the city manager's recommendations. Generally speaking, we increase the estimated revenues year over year by 2%, and that is what we are doing again this year. So you will notice that we start with a beginning fund balance of $25,609,115. We're anticipating a half-cent sales tax collection of $23 million, just over $23 million. And Insight, which is the company that we separate out because it is a limited time, we anticipate a $1.4 million revenue from that. And if you recall, 1/4 of that goes to this budget, with 3/4 of it going to the general fund budget. And then we have investment earnings shown there as well for a total revenue of $25.3 million. Then there are the 5 categories of appropriations: the agencies, business district, street and drainage, recreation, community centers, and other, which are detailed on the following pages, so I won't state those at this point. We'll go into those by line item. Then you have the other financing sources. There's a transfer to the general fund. That's the after-school Boys and Girls Club program. The transfer to sales tax debt fund. That's the La Plaza Mall debt. That is a plug number. We've paid 2 years of that. The first year was around $200,000. This year it looks like it'll be $9,000. So we just put a plug number of $300,000 in there to cover that. Then we have the transit funding at $2.06 million. The transfer to Quinta is going to be for the shortages that we have from the MISD contribution, and we're going to break that over 2 years, 1.5 this year, 1.5 next year. The transfer to local government debt service fund, that's for Texas A&M. And then we have the marketing fund at $100,000, And there is a drainage fee project, a McAllen lateral that we're looking to fund out of the shortage of $370 out of this budget. So if you look at the ending fund balance, if we were to complete every single project that was listed in here and spend every dollar, we would be at $16.087 million in general fund at the end of next year. And as you know, if you look to the next pages, you will see recurring, rollover, and new projects. I will tell you there are only 2 new projects that are being recommended in this budget, and we'll point those out as we get along. The first group of entries there is agencies, and you all did hear presentations from the agencies and already made a recommendation at our last meeting, with the exception of a line item number 16. There was a request by STC, and I believe that is in your packet as a letter dated April 8th. They were requesting $805,000 for a shortage of construction costs that they have for their Cooper Center for Performing Arts. We are recommending half of that be funded through the Development Corporation, so we are showing a $402,500 expense there. And the other ones are the recommendations that you all have made at the last budget meeting. Then you will see the recurring costs. We have business development and recruitment. Downtown refresh, that's been a very successful program, so that's $251 and $250 respectively. The involuntary demolition program, that's done by code and health and code enforcement, that's $150,000. The matching grant programs that we have, the smaller amounts that planning distributes for neighborhood associations for residential and then for commercial grants. Then there is the refresh, 50-50 basically, $300,000. Project Imagine Tomorrow, which we continue to leverage a great deal of private investment at $400,000. Potential investments is a slug number that we use for companies that come in seeking incentives so that we can take from here, reclassify, and not have to come back to you every time for a budget amendment. We do get them ratified by you, but that gives us some flexibility there. The Retail Buxton is $60,000. Tres Lagos Developers Reimbursement, that's a number that we use for the water and sewer contributions that the city has agreed to pay when certain subdivisions develop throughout the Tres Lagos project. UTRGV Medical School, there's a $1 million number in that line item. Moving on to page 3, we have the largest single line item, and that's the 380 agreements that we do with business and industrial foundations. There is a long list of those, but that is the expected contribution if they all meet their minimum requirements. The next category is streets and drainage improvements. Benson Road widening is a rollover. Benson Road widening part 2, that's the new part. The rollover is the design, and then the new part would be the right-of-way acquisition, continuing, and geotech services and traffic study. That is one of the 2 new projects that's being recommended for funding at $900,000. Then you'll see some that should be completing this year, and the next new one is line 51, which is Sherry Road. We do have an agreement with Hidalgo County Precinct 3 to contribute to this project, and this project would actually take Sherry Road up to where Fire Station number 8 is being constructed currently, and give Tres Lagos another exit from that development. At the
Michelle,
bottom,
what did you say on line 48? I might have not been listening.
line 48 is not recommended for funding.
Okay.
Moving on to page number 4. We have the next category, which is recreation, community centers, and entertainment. We have a couple of recurring expenses there that have been combined. In previous years, we've had entertainment at $15,000 and logistics at $25,000. We're combining those into one Christmas in the Park line item at $40,000. There's a rollover of the golf course erosion control wall. Going down to line 72, McAllen event. That is a typographical error. The $300,000 should be $150,000. That is an annual expense that we are putting into that event. Then you will go to the last category, which is other. The administrative fee is city staff support for all of the ongoing operations of the Development Corporation. The airlines number is also a plug number that we use for airlines incentives, and as you know, we've been really quite successful with our airlines improving their offerings to the public. And we have the rollover of the Ansel Lewis cargo design, which is essentially for construction administration services on that project, and we did add a little over $500,000 for the commissioning that will be required for that building when it's completed in February of 2025. The Chamber of Economic Development Strategy, that was a program that was approved last year. Did not get off the ground due to the change in personnel, but we are recommending that that be rolled over for this year, $141,500. City Hall expansion design, that has been awarded, and that will be starting very soon to start seeing some encumbrances in that. That's a $3.3 million. The last item on that page does not show anything in the city manager recommendations. However, I just came from a status meeting where it appears that the contractor will not finish with that project in this fiscal year, and so we will be getting a rollover number for that project. It won't be any new funds. It'll just be what is unexpended at the end of this fiscal year, so that will be added into that at the budget recap. And on the final page, we have the McAllen Heritage Center. This is for various improvements at the Heritage Center. That is also a rollover of $60,827. The operating expenses is $7,000. Professional services is for consulting fees for Austin and Washington. That's $300,000. The storage is for the float studio rental, and that's $42,000, for a total of other at $9.5 million. And then you have the transfers out that we discussed on page 1, and that is the total of the budget, showing a total expenditures and transfers out of $34.8 million. I'll entertain any questions. Yes, sir, Mr. Voss.
On line 83, the City Hall expansion design, why is there such a difference between what is partner requests and the recommendation? Just cost increases or what?
What happened there is that we had a budget for that, and we were going to be renovating this building and adding on to this building. The commission made a decision to take City Hall across the street and start new, and so with the new square footage, the cost of the design went up, and so that's to cover the cost of the new design. Any other questions?
Yeah, got a number of questions, I'm
Okay.
sure. The Heritage Center expansion projects, the 750,
Yes.
are we waiting on them, or are they
Yes.
waiting on us, or?
Last year, if you recall, the commission gave them direction that they were to let us know if they wanted to do a 2-story or a 3-story, and that they would raise the city would pay 2/3 and they would pay 1/3. And so when we do have what's been raised, and the dollar amounts were $1.5 million for a 3-story, so we would require them to show us a $500,000 donation. If it was 2 stories, it was $333,000 of the million.
Are we just asking them to provide proof of that amount of money that they've
Yes, sir.
got? Okay.
Yes. And once we do see that,
You
you know,
may-
that they have, then we can come back and consider a budget amendment if it's mid-year. or-
Okay. You may just want to ask them for an update, maybe an updated letter
Certainly.
on that. Let's see, the Chamber of Economic Development Strategy, the 141,500, is that the program that we were talking about a couple of years ago?
Yes,
Okay.
that Josh presented
That
to
Josh
us, and we
presented.
had come
Okay.
back a couple of times with some details.
So we're hoping
Had a
that,
different name.
Yes,
that this coming, yeah, totally different name, but
yes,
we're hoping that this coming year, they'll get it off the ground,
yes,
I imagine. Okay.
that's the hope.
Great. Let's see. The UTRGV Medical School, the $1 million, I know we've talked about this, I mean, we keep talking about it every year. Was there a discussion about allocating $1 million to another program? Was it the nursing program instead of this, or were we going to continue to fund the medical school in addition to the nursing
Right.
program?
Well, the direction that we received last year was to do both.
Okay.
Obviously, there was a kind of an expectation of the medical school, and I think at some point that when I went back and listened to last year's budget, there was another year or two kind of left on that 10-year commitment. And so that would be up to the board and the commission at that time to determine if they wanted to continue to fund the medical school.
Okay.
But that is a good investment in our community.
So we're nearing the end of our obligation on the medical school
Yes, sir.
project. And I think the last question I had was on the Performing Arts Center, STC Performing Arts Center.
Yes.
That's a recommendation the city manager has there for $402,500. Was it a presentation that we were provided at any point?
No, I have a copy of the letter, and there should be a copy in your packet that it was written to the city manager by Dr. Ricardo Solis. I understand that he had spoken with Commissioner Zamora and the mayor regarding the possibility of the city helping them with their construction shortfall. I believe the city manager saw the value in being able to, this is for the Valley Symphony Orchestra. We would be able to relieve some of the days that we use the Performing Arts Center for that venue to be freed up for this.
Yeah, while I'm in favor of it, it just seems like we weren't provided a whole lot of information to be able to make a $400,000 recommendation, right? And so,
I agree.
And it did come in after the last time when you had clarifications.
got it, he just provided it.
It did come
Okay.
in after the last time when you had the two agencies come back with clarifications. So if you would like to see, them come back and do another presentation by themselves.
We might be able to just catch it at the
Budget
commission level.
Yes.
I mean, the letter basically says, that they budgeted another 805. So would we then consider the fact that we're recommending half of that the other half is in place? Have we verified that? Since we want to make sure all the funds are available
Right.
before we commit to any project, right?
Sure, yeah. Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. I have not had a discussion with Dr. Solis, but we can certainly clarify that to make sure that they
I
will
think
have
that-
the other
that would
half
be
that
warranted,
we're
yes.
not funding.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to having it on our budget unless other board members are. But it's
No,
just,
not opposed.
I felt like we needed a presentation, and we could probably get that during the budget wrap-up, yeah.
Yeah, no, I kind of had some of the same questions as Omar. I agreed as well. It just seemed to be kind of thrown in there with little rationale or reasoning or presentation. It's obviously a large-scale project, but I would question whether STC really has the funds or not, or if it's just a request I mean, we're already giving them, between the other programs, $1 million. And then I look at some of the stuff that's not getting funded, and I do wonder, there's been planning, some of these projects, even the roadway projects, I'm sure they're needed, and they're not being recommended. And so I question whether those with ongoing needs and big effect on the surrounding areas, that, if we're just going to throw in a project a week before and continue pushing off infrastructure projects, I wonder which one might be more critical. But I'm not opposed to it, like Omar said. And then, can you remind me, STIP, what that means?
Which one?
Step.
The Nolana project, it says projected in the STIP.
Oh, that's Transportation Improvement Project. That's the MTP and the MPO's method for funding. That's essentially their budget, their upcoming budgets.
So that would move towards their funding source, is what you mean, right?
Right, and they do have us funded for some funds, and so us being able to develop that project would be helpful.
And then I know the 380 agreements are done at 100% of potential funding.
Yes.
I guess it was a good thing, but did we approve that many incentives? Or why did it drop? It went from 10 million to 6.8 and all of a sudden back to 9. Did something drop off? and come
No, basically, they never all get fully funded.
No.
We will get requests from some of them, and they will not be at 100% of what they were required to provide, so they'll get lesser funding. And so that's the actuals versus what's
Oh, okay.
proposed. And then, of course, we added several this year, so.
in? Okay, yeah, see, that's the actual.
Is there any?
And then,
Go
yeah, I was
ahead.
gonna say, on the
Keep
same
going.
thing on the Heritage Center, from discussion I had with them, they were about 2/3 of the way to I think some of the funds they needed. I guess if a discussion can be had with them,
Yes.
and that's prior to a capital campaign,
Yes.
would we just recommend funding now, subject to? In other words, that would be the,
Well, the direction that was given management last year was that we were to wait until the funding was in place, and then we would if we needed to come back mid-year to make a budget adjustment, we could do so. I did have a conversation with the director this morning, and we can certainly revisit to see where they are with their fundraising efforts and have that be funded when they do meet their commitment.
okay. And then I know the golf course erosion wall, we did that, I guess, is phase 2, it says new.
Right.
Would this be the last of it? And I know it wasn't recommended, but if it's heavily needed, I mean, does it only get worse?
Carlos, can you answer that, please?
Yes, Commissioner. We're hoping to do this project in 2 or 3 phases, depending on how the bids came in. Last year, we completed phase 1. We did probably 75% of the lake. I'm sorry, of the west side of the lake.
Is this
And
one
so-
lake?
One lake, the one between 3 and 4, between holes 3 and 4.
So this one lake we did, just to get,
Last year, we did,
it was about 250,000 total, right?
yes, sir.
And then this one, you're estimating another 500,000. And then you said there's possibly a phase 3. What's it gonna take to get this lake?
Well, depending on how the bids come in, if they come in like we feel they will, then we may be able to complete the entire lake with a 500,000.
And then that would, I guess, mitigate the problem for how long, or what's?
It'll be a permanent fix. I think we get a 20-year warranty on that.
Yeah, so some of the issue out there is we have the prevailing winds, and you get a little bit of a wave effect. And what's happening right now is there's a drop off. And so that you're getting erosion off that lake, and so it's kind of compromised some of the green, some of the fairway on one side. And so what Carlos is trying to do, or what he's asked us to do, is try to mitigate that effect. Right now, like Carlos said, only on the west side, we've done about 75%. We need to come all the way around and finish that off at some point. We've been doing it slowly through appropriations here. But, that, you asked, is there a reason? It's because we are having that wall kind of erode a little bit, and it's eating into the greens and the putting, and the fairway.
Did we start on the side where it has the more erosion because of the prevailing wind?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And so, do you have an idea of how much runway you have until you would say it's critical, or could limit the services the golf course can provide? I mean, do we have any?
Over the years, we've lost about 18 feet in the last 25 years. And what we have done to try and mitigate the problem, we've addressed mowing patterns a little differently to guide the golfer away from the lake. But we're pretty much at a point where we need to take care of it.
Michelle, I wanted to ask you about Taylor Road, north of Business 83. I understand that there's going to be a shortfall
Yes.
with that project. Do we happen to know how much and when we're going to need to plug that number in?
Taylor Road north of 83, was that the $4 million? Or is that the $2 million? Eduardo?
Which phase was that again, ma'am?
Taylor Road north of Business 83.
So right now, that, they're projecting about a $4 million shortfall. That would be, if we don't come up with any funding through a state or federal source, it would be split between McAllen and Mission. That'd be $2 million apiece.
Okay.
And we have been looking to find other avenues for that through MPO funding. They ask sometimes that you can surrender future projects and bring that funding into it, so we'll have to be in negotiations with Mission to look at some other avenues for that.
That's 95% designed, right? And
They're 100% designed.
okay.
What, they're missing 2 parcels,
Okay.
and
Are they
it could go in December if we have that funding. I think there's other underlying things that can be discussed later.
Right,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Well,
The MPO is a big player in that, so it's a complicated animal, but we're working behind the scenes to see what
Okay.
we can do to mitigate that and get that project moving forward.
great. That'd be a good. Be a good project.
And on the UTRGV thing, also similar to what Omar had stated, maybe I feel like each year we're told, oh, we're in the last year, or it's the last year or two. Can we get a definitive date of when that 10-year period ends? Because I think after that 10-year period ends, there shouldn't be just $1 million plug.
Right.
You know, at that point, if they'd like a request, they should make a formal request for something specific. But just rolling on $1 million plug, I think needs to end after the 10-year period ends. And I thought we were already there as of last year, if not this year.
What about?
So,
Yeah, I thought we were there too, but then I went back and listened to last year's budget, and it said, but what we'll do is we'll get a detail of what we've paid out and what years and what the original agreement was to share with you.
Yeah. Because we've gotten updates from them where they're starting to use some of the money for certain programs, and we should get updates on whether those programs are still needing funding. So
and how the medical school's doing, right? I
yeah,
mean,
that too. Just overall.
Just
Enjoy.
overall progress updates,
Yeah.
accreditation, all that type of stuff.
Yep.
Certainly.
Any other comments on the budget?
For my education, President and Michelle, so estimated is the estimated actual?
You're talking about the estimated 23, 24?
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
that's what we estimate to be at the end of September of this year, what we will have spent.
Okay. So on, tell me again about potential investments.
Okay, potential investments is, sometimes MEDC will bring in a prospect that is going to build an industrial warehouse, or they're going to bring a business to an existing warehouse, and they're asking for incentives. We have typical incentive programs where we offer tax rebates and a certain amount of dollars for jobs, depending on what they're promising to bring in, and we sign these agreements with them. And so those come in at all times of the year. And so rather than hold off and we can't make an offer to development without coming back to this board, we go ahead and have the potential investment. We do take them, obviously, in executive session to the City Commission for approval prior to offering anything. And then we come back to this board and let you know that it's been moved from there to over here. And we make that budget adjustment.
And so based on this, we didn't do any of that last year.
We took them out at other times, right, Angie? We came back and made budget amendments for those, and we left the 750 alone.
And then, educate me, I'm sorry, but if you don't recommend it, like not line 48 or line 50, the reasons why?
48, 50.
I guess going to
It's
Commissioner
simply a
Haddad's.
fiscal constraint matter. We don't want to go too low on our fund balance, and what Roy believed to be the best projects and the most promising ones that needed to be funded are being recommended. So certainly the board can suggest that we fund other projects or trade them out or add projects.
Or maybe get the reason, why it's not being recommended on a priority
Right.
basis or
Right.
whatever. That would be good point.
And had I done the recommendations, I would have that for you, but since I did ask Roy about some of them, but I don't know exactly why, for instance, Nolana or Freddie wasn't funded, other than just that, we do have limited funding and we don't want to bring the fund balance too low.
What's too low?
Well, we have, restrictions on how many days of operating capital. For the city in general, it's 140 days. For the Development Corporation, is it 90? I'm not sure that there is one for Development Corporation.
And then, President Quintanilla, what did we decide on the request from STC, that we just want them to come back and make a presentation, or a little bit more information?
More information. I think also because
Yeah.
if he's requesting
Yeah.
805, we want to determine that he
If
has.
they have the other
the other-
4025.
Before you actually allocate it, I think that's the fair thing to do.
I agree with that.
But no
Yeah.
opposition.
Yes, sir, yes, sir.
Okay.
Good
I
point.
don't have any other questions.
Okay. Any other? Mark or Seti?
No.
And I guess if we just want to ask if there's any public input, since this is a public hearing.
Yeah, any public comment at this point? Anyone?
Okay, and then we
All
can
right.
close the public hearing, and if you all
Okay.
are ready to entertain a motion on the budget.
All right, we'll close the public hearing part of the meeting. And we will need a vote on the budget as well?
Yes.
Okay, so is there a motion?
So it's going to finalize it, or they're going to come back with some of that?
We have
How
to
does that
turn the
work?
budget in tomorrow, so we need to adopt something here. We can come back and make adjustments in the final budgetary hearings, when the commission hears it, and the Development Corporation can bring it back.
So on those two items that we discussed, we
We
would
need
have.
direction,
Okay.
yes. Mhm. So you want to leave the 402,500 in there, or do we want to take that out and wait until we see that they
I
have?
want to take it out.
Take it out?
But
Well, on those
Or
two
whatever.
items, I think that's the right thing to
that's
do.
what I'm saying, do we,
What was the other one?
well, I guess we would leave in, we want to do maximum budget. I'd rather amend and take out.
Right, we don't have to spend it. If you put
Yeah.
it in there, it's in there, and then we can do
That's
it
right.
if you're.
I'd rather
if
go
you're
that
okay with it,
direction than the other way.
Where we have to come
Then
back.
add it later?
But
yeah.
I'd like to ask the committee to also consider adding in the golf course erosion wall. It's gonna have to be done now, next year, year after. The fund balance without it would be at 16. It would put us at about 15.6. I mean, it's pretty healthy.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
We'll add that.
I don't know if anybody else does, but. All right, we can add that. Anything else? So we're going to include the 402, and we're going to keep the million for the medical school. Those are the two that we were talking about, needing more presentation, but
Yes.
we can visit that during budget wrap-up.
Yes.
Everything else looks like it's staying the same. We're going to hear back from the Heritage Center on their project, and also potentially catch that at City Commission side. Anything else? May have missed.
I think we got it.
All right, so is there a motion to approve the budget?
I so move with those stipulations or conditions.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
And there's a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. There being no further business, this meeting is adjourned.
La ciudad de McAllen cree que los comentarios públicos son una importante parte en dejando que sus ciudadanos tengan sus voces escuchadas. Si tienes una idea para mejorar nuestros